When you made the short video for I Am Migration, did you have any idea that you were going to make a documentary later on?
No.
Was that part of the plan? No?
No, for me, that was it. Like I was just hoping to engage with other people and maybe make them curious about where they came from. But I never thought I was going to make a documentary. That wasn't really in the plans. We had an idea. We were very creative, my husband and I. So we thought like, oh, maybe we could do this, maybe we could do that. But there was nothing really solid.
So kind of, this whole whirlwind, you take the DNA test, you become inspired and emboldened, there are things you want to sort of say, and then you have this thing become viral. At what point is the documentary sort of on the table?
A few months later, I want to say maybe 2 months later, we had like 4 DNA companies that reached out to me on social media, and they said, we loved your work, how can we sponsor you to do a next project? And so out of all of them, I chose one of them, My Heritage DNA, because they were giving me completely free will to do as I please, to tell the stories that I please, and they offered me 400 DNA tests for free to give to the people, plus all the funding. So I was like, these people are great. So we went with them.
And so did they sponsor the RV as well?
Yes.
That was part of it?
They sponsored the whole trip.
My goodness. And just to backtrack for a second, I understand you took more than one DNA test?
Yes, because I wanted to make sure that maybe I was accurate. I wanted just to test the water. So I took I think with 4 different companies just to see, and they were all very similar. Maybe there was like 1 or 2 percentages of differences, but they were all very similar.
Right. Yeah, I know one company that I took one with, which was great. My DNA changed slightly. I don't know if you've noticed it.
Yes.
It like, I don't know if a new territory was found or something. Okay, right.
It happens.
Like,
No, it happens.
Yeah, okay. So I do understand that, it can be slightly different.
And as research keeps going, as more people get tested, the data grows and changes. It starts to change a little bit.
So they sort of prompted you for the documentary idea. You weren't already planning it.
No, we had different ideas, but then when they told us that they wanted to invest, that's when my husband and I, we sat down. It's like, okay, what do we want to do? What do we want to tell? And then we said like, well, we have all these DNA tests available. Let's use them for a road trip. And that's when we started brainstorming. That's when it happens, and then we hired a historian who knew the story of very well, the history of the U.S. and the first migrants and the first colonizer and how everything happened. So we based the story kind of on his research to make it also very accurate, what we wanted to tell, and that's how it started, the documentary to be created. But then again, when I started it, because it was a documentary, we didn't know who we were going to encounter, who we were going to interview. Like we try to precast beforehand, that never happened. So every person you see, it was literally us going to a restaurant, talking to a waitress, hey, do you want to have a DNA test? She was like, yeah, sure. So everything was very in the moment, like was very spontaneous. So at the end, what I had to review all the footage is when I had to start put together the story that I wanted to tell. Like I knew the route we were taking, because of the historian, he has helped us shape the route, but then the actual story, how I'm narrating the documentary, that had to be done after we shot the whole thing.
Okay, and now you started out in which state and little town? We
started in New Jersey, in Paterson, New Jersey, and we were very surprised because it's a very mixed town. Like you see so many different cultures living together. So that for me was a pleasant surprise. And that's where we found all the people that we have in the documentary, which is like spending a couple of days here and there and stopping at a bakery where we met Mark, and just meeting people on the street.
Wow, so you kind of knew that's where we'll start, and so you drove from LA to Paterson, New Jersey?
No, so we drove to New York.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
And then, let me think about it. We drove to New York. I'm trying to remember how did we do it, because it was a couple of years ago. But I remember our trip with the RV, it actually started in New York. Then we drove to Paterson, New Jersey, and then we kept going. And then we had to wait for the DNA test results to come back. So we waited in LA for like a month or so. And then when the DNA tests were ready, we went all the way back to interview all the people. And then we finished back in New York.
presenting them with the
With the results.
Right,
Because
right.
we have to record them on camera.
Yeah, no, that was very powerful where they, I don't want to give too much away, where they
Yes.
discovered, because some of the people were surprised at, whether it was cultural conditioning or religious upbringing, whatever. And so it was fascinating to watch.
Yeah. As I said, it's surprising. You never know what you're going to get. And usually it's something that you never thought you were going to be. So it's very interesting. Can be triggering, can be beautiful, but can be, a lot of things.
Right. Well, just out of curiosity, was there anybody who didn't want their results shown, maybe, for whatever reason?
No, the people who didn't want their DNA to be taken, they would just say no. I'd be like, hey, can I? They're like, no. So those people were just like out of the box right away. They were like, no, we're not interested. But everybody else who agreed, they were very curious to see what were the results. Yeah.
The two sisters were great as well.
Yes.
Yeah, everybody
yes.
was. I love the mix of people that you got. I thought it was a good, group. Was there one in particular that really just kind of got to you in some way, where you really felt compelled?
Yes, that's Bob from the Paiute tribe, the Native American, Bobby Burns. I found him at a gas station. We were just putting gas in the RV, and I stopped and I saw there was a group of Native Americans having lunch, and I was like, maybe I should approach him. So my husband was like, I'm not gonna go, because what we learned is that depending on which state we were, like for example, if, as I want to call it, if we were like in a cowboy town, if I were go myself and introduce myself, they would like kind of disregard it. But my husband, he's tall, he wears a cowboy hat, he's Caucasian, so he would have an easier access. And the opposite way, like if I saw someone who was more Latino or more, that looked more like me, I had an easier access. So we kind of like divided our to go. And when I saw Bobby, my husband was like, you gotta go. I was like, I got it. So I went and I saw him and I just asked him like, hey, Bobby, can I interview you? Do you want to do a DNA test? And at first he was like, what is this all about? He wasn't really convinced. And then when I told him what I was doing, he agreed and he did it. And to me, that's one of the most powerful interviews that we saw. Not only because we end up discovering that he is 100% American. By that, it means he's from South America, Central America, North America. Like he's from all over. So that was a beautiful gift. But also to see his reactions, his ideas, his thinking, how, because he changes. Like once you know a part of yourself, something changes in you. So it was beautiful to see that change in him.
I love how you say, we own, like, I am what I am. Can you talk about what is that? Like, how is owning that? What does that mean?
It's interesting because for me, I call myself a gypsy of the world because I was born in a country, raised in another country as a kid, then as a teenager I moved to Colombia, then I moved to the States, then Canada. So even for me, it's been, I don't want to say a struggle, but it's always very interesting every time I have to move from one country to the other, because I always come to a new country as the new person, like the new immigrant. I had to, in every country I went, I had to learn a new language, like I spoke French until I was 4, because that was the language we spoke in preschool. Then when I went to Italy, I learned Italian because that's when I went to school. And then when I went to Colombia, I learned Spanish. Even though my parents spoke Spanish at home, I used to answer them in Italian because that was my surrounding. That's, my kids are the same. They answer to me in English, but I know they understand Spanish. So I did that. And I actually started speaking Spanish when I was 11, 12. And I spoke with an Italian accent. Like kids used to tease me at school that I sounded weird, that I sounded Italian. And then again, when I moved to the States, I barely knew English. I knew the basics like, hi, my name is, where is the bathroom? That's about it. And I learned English by going to acting classes and seeing the reactions of people through the emotions. And so for me, I've had this thing of like, not really feeling that I belong to one place, but kind of belong to all these different places that I've been. So that's why I am who I am, because, I am of the results, of each one of these parts of the world that made me me.
Fascinating. And I would imagine for others that have taken things, the DNA tests that were surprised at results, that's got to be an interesting thing to go from one identity to realizing that maybe they were part of something and that they were more of another. And
Yeah, absolutely. Because, we've been raised to think that we are from this one place, like, and it's not a bad thing because you need culture, you need the stories of your grandparents and your culture and your language. Like I think it's important. But also we have to understand that as the war shifts and people are traveling more, like, there's some people that maybe they're more than just one place.
When you have a sort of a missing piece
Yes,
in your life,
yes.
and these DNA tests, they, connect you to that piece, whether it's beyond the grave or whatever it is. How is it for people that did not really know the other parent to get a test?
What I found, for some people, they had no idea where they came from. I found curiosity. They were like, oh, wow, I didn't know I was Scandinavian. She was like, I never even know there was a country named Scandinavia. Like it was more curiosity for most of them, because they were also from countries or parts of the world they've never heard. So, and then they was like, oh, I want to know more. Right. And that's what I think, like, oh, that's good. What we're doing, it's good, So it's interesting. And for some people, it could be triggering because maybe as we had in the Patterson, New Jersey, I think Mike.
Right, the Mike, restaurant, yeah.
Yeah, he discovers that he is not Muslim, he's a different, religion where he came from. And for him was like, wow, okay. So he had to, for a second he was shocked.
Saw that, yeah.
And then he had to digest. He was like, okay. And then he turns around and looks at his wife and said like, oh, so I guess we're cousins. And they started to laugh,
Right, that was a good moment.
So it's very interesting to see that how it lands on people and like it starts to make you question so many things, that you thought you knew about yourself, but now you know more.
Right, and another thing that's interesting is these DNA companies will give you other people where you have a match, and it may be something as small as like, your 8th cousins removed or something. Did you encounter any stories on that? You didn't really touch too much on people getting to know one another from that, because that's its own sort of thing.
Yes, because I thought that was his own thing. We just wanted to, because we know we had a short time to tell this story, so we kind of went with the stories that kind of made sense to dive deep into it.
Right. No, I love that you find out the breakdown. I don't want to give away too much, but it was great to watch, and especially if you've taken a test like that and it has really affected your life. I highly recommend it, and you keep it very upbeat. It's not depressing, and I appreciate that.
Yes, I feel like with I've always been a very positive person because I was raised to be this way, but I feel like with all my work, even though it's very social and touches about very sensitive topics like, racism and immigration, I always try to have like a hope or like a message of empathy or humanity at the end. Because I think in the end, that's all we can do, try to have empathy for each other. It's not much.
It's great. No, I do see that optimism in you, and I appreciate that. What do you think the concept is of being an American? What is that concept, whether you were born here, raised here, not born here?
I think being an American right now, it's a concept that is shifting. I felt like when I moved to this country 20 years ago, there was a very powerful message or initiative of the American dream, of thinking that you can make it if you get there, if you work really hard, and you can get to where you want to be. And that actually happened to my husband. He lived the American dream. He's from Australia. He came here in his 20s and he started as a waiter, and then he became a manager. And then the owners asked him if they wanted to go with him as co-partners in his next business, as he did. And then in the end, he ended up buying them out, and he ended up owning the place himself. So that happened in a span of 20 years for him, but it happened, And we both say, like, the reason we both moved to this country, because we both wanted to have this American dream of, like, kind of becoming whoever you want to become. And I think the dream is still there, but it's become harder to achieve this dream. With such difference in class, such difference in income, such difference, it's not as easy to achieve this dream. So I also think like the idea of being American is been shifting lately, And again, I feel like 3 generations ago, we were more open of immigrants coming into this country and building this country and making them feel like they were Americans. And unfortunately, with all this political climate, I don't feel it's open anymore. You know, we were becoming a little bit more enclosed. They would just want to keep the Americans inside and foreigners apart, you know. So I think it's shifting. I don't know if for good or for bad, but it's definitely, I feel like, a shift on what it is to be an American. You know, I think even Americans, friends of mine, are questioning themselves, their identity. You know, what does it mean?
Thank you for watching the video all the way to the end. Here is a complimentary question from our book Story Questions.